Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode. I'm Mike Monticello.
I'm Ryan Pizlakowski.
And I'm Jennifer Stockberger.
So this week, we're going to talk about our full road test results of the 2022 Chevrolet Bolt EUV. Later on in the show, we are going to talk about a little bit of an asterisk or word of caution related to the Bolt, but we'll get to that later. First, let's just talk about, if you don't know what the Bolt EUV is, EUV stands for Electric Utility Vehicle, and it's basically a taller, slightly longer version of the Bolt EV. Regular Bolt redesigned along with this, updated interior, still has the same 200 horsepower electric motor, and small differences between these two in terms of range. 247 miles of range for the EUV, down from the regular Bolt's 259 miles of electric driving range, mostly because the EUV is a heavier vehicle. The other thing is to keep in mind is that General Motors no longer qualifies for the federal EV tax credit. So that $7,500 EV tax credit, you won't be able to get federal wise, but there could be other state incentives still to available for you if you're buying an electric vehicle. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Let's go to you, Jen, first. I have a question for you because it's an electric utility vehicle, EUV, which means it's basically supposed to be an SUV, but the Bolt EUV lacks some key SUV attributes, available all-wheel drive, extra ground clearance, and more luggage capacity than the regular Bolt. So does it kind of come across as not really an SUV and not really fulfilling what the marketing is saying that the vehicle should be doing?
So yes, but first I want to start by saying I like the Bolt a lot. I liked it before it was an EUV. I liked the Volt a lot. So I go so far as to say it gives you everything you would expect from an EV. Super punchy off the line, quiet, range that works, 247, EPA says 247, and it lacks, to me, a lot of EV quirkiness. I always say, I like an EV that doesn't remind me every minute that I'm in an EV. I don't think the Bolt does that. Got a little bit of brake pedal modulation issues, but they're not glaring. I kind of got in it and drove it around and said, it's just to remind myself, I really, really like this car. It's the size I like. I would say if I were buying an EV today, this is the EV I would buy. However, to answer your question, I've said before, my driveway goes out and turns immediately up a hill. I have to have all-wheel drive to get out. So yes, I think...
And to make it clear, it's a dirt road.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. People don't think that, wow, she can't go up steep hills on pavement. No, it's a pretty rough dirt road.
Yeah.
And so that's it. But I also just want to see, are you saying you would buy the Bolt or the Bolt EUV?
I would buy the Bolt EUV.
Okay.
I would buy the Bolt EUV. This is the EV I would buy if it had all-wheel drive that I have to get in and out of my driveway. And I don't get it because in an electric configuration, it's easy to do. You just put another electric motor back there. So I don't.
You can have a motor in. You can have a motor. It's as simple as that.
Yes. Come on, General Motors. But I also think it's going to be an expectation of the buyers of this. They made it sound like an SUV. I think they absolutely need to do this to put it on there. I also think, in another scenario, is that if you were a commuter on a highway and you took this EV powertrain, combined it with the ability on this, again, not cheap, but $43,000, where you can get General Motors Super Cruise, you've got a pretty nice commuting vehicle where you can use Super Cruise to ease off the, and sit in your traffic or whatever your long commute, take some of the fatigue out of that. It has direct driver monitoring. It's a camera looking at you all the time, just like on any Super Cruise vehicle, to make sure you're paying attention. But what a nice combination of EV and Super Cruise for a person who has a long commute, a long highway commute, because Super Cruise is limited to where it operates. But I just really like this car.
Did you explain that Super Cruise is an active driving assistance system, which basically does it combines adaptive cruise control to handle the speed and braking and slowing down and all that, along with lane keeping assistance, so that the point being that this Super Cruise system is actually designed to be hands off the wheel. A lot of these systems are really not designed to be hands off the wheel. This one actually is on specific pre-mapped highways.
Right.
It actually works better, weirdly, with your hands off the wheel, because you don't feel like you're ever fighting the system if you have your hands on the wheel. But anyway, this Super Cruise isn't as advanced as the one that we had on the Escalade.
True.
I'd like to say first as well, I do like this car. The Bolt is sort of, even the original Bolt was kind of a no nonsense, just get in and drive, kind of it drives like almost like a normal car, right? This is just get in and drive car as well. They fixed the front seat, which is a good thing. It's still not a great seat.
More comfortable is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. The first Bolt it was like sitting on a stump. The seat was terrible. I'm going to go there. It was that bad.
Yeah.
So they fixed that. It's not wonderful, but it's a lot better. And it's a little bit less range. It's not that big of a deal. It's still a fair amount of range. I mean, I wish every EV had 800 miles of range, but I'm unrealistic. So I get anxiety. I don't like that. But that being said, it's not an SUV. I'm sorry. This is it's a slightly bigger hatchback. It's still great, but I just wouldn't call it an SUV.
It's funny because you guys both said you like driving this vehicle and you like this vehicle. I agree. I mean, there are some faults. It definitely has some faults, and we'll get to those. But I agree. It's like, for instance, it's about a half a second slower 0 to 60 than the regular Bolt. Okay, and you do notice. I mean, as soon as I got in, I thought, well, it's because that original Bolt was so speedy off the line.
Yeah.
But this one, okay, it's not as quick, but it's still quick.
Right.
I mean,
I was
don't
going to
get
say
us wrong.
it's still good.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it is a fun vehicle from the perspective of how quick it is, and the two different options for the regenerative braking, which we can also get into. I'm a big fan of having options for the regenerative braking.
Yeah, me too.
Jen doesn't. Okay, we got lots of stuff apparently we got to get to, because we still got to talk about the Super Cruise. We got to talk about the different regen braking options.
Right.
So we'll get to that. Ryan, talk about Super Cruise and the quirks that you noticed with this one, if you don't mind, and then we'll move on to regen braking. Regen braking with Jen. It could be a new segment.
Regen braking. I like that. So this is like Super Cruise 1.0, maybe? It's still decent, but it seems like it's half developed or something. Just because I'm comparing it to the Escalade's version of it, I noticed it was just it was jerkier. It wasn't as smooth. Like the Escalade was very like it just followed the road with more precision, but like it was just smooth. And now I'm thinking the Escalade's bit is huge. So it's more of a challenge, I would think, for it to keep it on those lines nice and smoothly, especially because it's a big vehicle and you start jerking the wheel, you get this uncomfortableness. The Bolt is tiny, but it's almost like the sensors for the Super Cruise, there was too much of a gap over to the line so that you kind of do this ping-ponging thing. Where the Escalade didn't do that, which I would have thought it would have been maybe the other way around. I don't know. So that was my gripe with the Super Cruise. I thought it's still nice to have. It's a great, we at Consumer Reports, we like the Super Cruise system because it makes sure that you are paying attention, because you are still driving that vehicle. You're still responsible for this mass going down the road. So 100%. It's making sure that you're still paying attention, and that's great. But it just wasn't as good as the other version.
It's just weird how you have to be so directly in the center of the lane before it will actually engage. It's like, I'm telling you, car, I'm in the center of the lane and I'm going straight.
Yeah. Yell at it?
And it seems like it takes forever before the little green steering wheel thing comes on and you're good to go again. But electric vehicles have regen braking, and basically what it's doing is it's recapturing energy and giving it back to the battery, right? And it feels like it's slowing the car down like a regular brakes do. And, we I think it's fair to say we like, and most people would like to have options on either how you do the regen braking, how you make the regen braking start, or even better is when you have different levels of how aggressive you want the regenerative braking, because everyone's different. Some people like only a tiny little bit of regenerative braking. Others like a very aggressive regenerative braking. And the whole point is what automakers are starting to call this is one pedal driving. And what that means is if you have the regen braking on, when you let off the accelerator pedal, it then immediately starts slowing the car. Now, you can do it two different ways with the Bolt. One, you can press a button on the center console that turns it into basically automatic regenerative braking. So anytime you let off the accelerator pedal, it's going to start this pretty aggressive regenerative braking, okay? The other option is you can do it anytime you want by pressing the left paddle on the steering wheel. And I like both options. The neat thing about that one is that you have total control over that. Whereas if you do it with just letting off the accelerator pedal, it's going to happen anytime you let off the accelerator pedal. If you use the paddle, now you are fully in control. Jen, what was your favorite of the two?
So I am definitely to the mild regenerative braking. And I get why you want aggressive to maximize your range, Ryan, not to 800 miles, but certainly to make sure you're getting all of your 247. However, and maybe I'm interested, I am struggling with one pedal driving because this isn't the only car that has it. It makes me motion sick. And I think I haven't mastered doing it smoothly enough that when it slows down, that it moves my body forward. I have never been motion sick as a driver, ever. But that little bit of forward displacement as it slows and puts me back and brings me forward and puts me back, I get motion sick. I have to shut off the one pedal driving.
Okay, so you actually don't press the center console button. You don't usually use the paddles. You just do it kind of normal.
And
use the regular brake pedal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
and I know we talked about this in the coverage of the EUV, but I have trouble with it. And I would be very interested in our viewers and listeners if anybody has used that one pedal driving, if they've experienced the same. Maybe it's just me.
I kind of look at it as a game. I like to see how many times, how few times I have to use the actual true brake pedal, and that's what I kind of. Look, EVs don't have a whole lot else going on in terms of engine noises or that kind of thing. So I'm making it a little more interesting by let's see if I can come to that stop sign and not have to hit the brake pedal at all. Anyway.
You think of a game. Did you see? So in the EUV, in the Bolt, there's this little bubble. It's almost like a level, and it shows you your X cell and D cells. It's like a little G meter on the side of the gauge package. And when you put the ball in the middle and drive super smoothly, either accelerate or decelerate very smoothly, it keeps the ball in the middle and a little leaf appears. Like it's very conservative, maximizing your range driving, very smooth. And that's a good game too, because it does keep you. We need that for winter driving. We tell people, drive like there's a coffee cup on your dash for winter driving. Drive like keep the little ball in the middle. It's a very fun game.
All right.
Played that in the Bolt.
We've probably beaten the regen braking and driving manners to death. Except Ryan, what about original Bolt, the really sharp handling but pretty rough ride? Did they fix that with this Bolt EUV?
Yeah, so they did a switcheroo, if you will. Switcheroo. It doesn't handle as well. The steering's not as sharp, but it rides better. It rides a little. It's not an excellent ride, but it's got some more compliance. It damps better. It's more comfortable, and for this type of a car, it kind of makes more sense, I think. It was fun. The original Bolt was fun. It was a buzzy little car. You could rip right around town with it, and it was quick and fun. But they took some of that out to get some comfort and everyday drivability, if you will. But it kind of makes sense, I think. And to me, the EUV makes more sense. Just it's a little bit bigger, but it shouldn't be called EUV. It should just be the new Bolt. I agree.
Bolt. Well, I don't know why they need two versions when they're really not that different from each other.
They're too close together, if you ask me.
The fit and finish, the interior redo is for both cars, and I thought they did a pretty nice job on making it look. The first one looked a little bit cheap in some areas. I thought they did a nice job there. The rear seat, though, again, it's a little odd, right? Like you think, it's going to have so much more room, and it has more leg room than the regular Bolt. The headroom's surprisingly tight for an SUV.
It's not an SUV, Mike. Stop calling it.
Stop calling it an SUV.
We've already established that, Mike.
I'm declaring it right now. It's not an SUV.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room, or in this case, the Bolt that's parked away across the test facility, because we don't want to make too much light of it, but we've had to, along with, there's a recall on these Bolts, and tell me it's not sad, folks. Jen and Ryan especially I'm talking to, because you guys come to the facility. When you drive out on the track right now, there's this little car way across the test facility on the pavement parked there because that's where we've had to park our Bolt EUV until it can get its recall fix. And so General Motors, if you don't know, is recalling 2020 to 2022 Chevrolet Bolt EV and 2022 Chevrolet Bolt EUV vehicles. The battery could catch fire when charged to full or nearly full capacity. These defective battery modules have to be replaced, and they will be replaced by GM free of charge. But until that is done, owners are advised to do a bunch of steps. Set the target charge level feature to limit the charge level to 90% charge. Charge their vehicle more frequently. Avoid depleting the battery to 70 miles of range remaining. And park outside after charging, and do not charge the vehicle indoors overnight. So it's a little sad, and it's sad to see our Bolt EUV out there, because like we said, we enjoy driving the thing, but right now it's off limits till we can get that fixed. So hopefully we'll get that fixed.
There's recalls that you can not take seriously or wait a little bit for the parts. This is not one of them, and where people are having to wait. I can't imagine having to own one and make all these precautions. And my worry is it tarnishes EVs in general. Because of this issue. But little certainly cause for concern, and follow the steps if you have an EUV or EV.
That's what I was going to say. If you have one of these Bolts, definitely get the recall done as soon as you possibly can, for the safety of your car and anything surrounding your car, because there is a fire risk there. Okay, let's move on to an audience question. And this one comes from Jordan from Boulder, Colorado. Jordan says, I'm an active skier who makes many trips to the snowy mountains in the height of winter and enjoy taking road trips in the summer. Two vehicles that I'm considering are the 2020 Subaru Forester or the 2020 all-wheel drive Toyota Prius. Both are appealing due to their practicality and good reliability, but I worry the Prius would struggle in winter weather due to low ground clearance. Assuming both vehicles have snow tires, how much of a factor is ground clearance in living with a vehicle in wintry conditions? Ryan, you're a big snowboarder. What's your answer here between these two? Which would you pick for Jordan?
Here's the thing. Most of the time, we're not driving through feet of snow, right? It's usually plowed somewhat, even if you're in the middle of a storm. However, if you do hunt fresh powder on snow days at mountains, as I do, and I have in my younger days, but sometimes you get to a parking lot that hasn't been plowed, and you are driving through a foot of snow. In this case, you're going to be better off with that Forester, but that's not all the time. So you have to kind of weigh that out. What happens with the ground clearance is, you have the traction because you have winter tires and you have all-wheel drive, but the snow starts to build up in the front of the air dam and underneath, and will literally eventually pick the car up off the ground, and you'll be stuck. I mean, and you're wedging snow and ice up into the radiators and places you just don't want to be damaging. So that's something to weigh. I have a hard time almost recommending one or the other without knowing the type of skiing you're doing. Some people like to go find their own places to go ski, and they'll park off the side of the road, and they hike up into the woods, and you're parking in some spots where you're in deep snow or deeper snow. The Forester isn't really high, so you can't go crazy even with that. But the Prius is going to be lower for sure. So it's 8.7 inches of ground clearance for the Forester, 5.3 inches of ground clearance for the Prius. Jen, you had your hand up, folks. She actually pressed the hand up button
I have a good story. I want you people to know that Mike Monticello wrote in these notes. Jen probably shouldn't answer this because she skis so slow.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard.
But I have a funny story. Last year, skiing really fast. I was at a local Vermont ski area, and we had to push a car out. Guess what it was? A Toyota Prius. Now, not all-wheel drive. I'm just going to qualify that. Right. But it was a spring ski day, and the parking lot snow had started to break up. It was starting to get slushy, and it was rutted. So it was actually going through in some places. So you think of times, like Brian says, you're looking for powder. Mm-hmm. I think you're at the ski slope all day and it snowed all day and they can't plow it because the parking lots are full. Yeah. Or this kind of spring rutted that certainly happens in Vermont, where that ground clearance is going to make a difference, all-wheel drive or not. And so I agree with you, Ron. I would go with the 3 more inches of ground clearance.
The other thing I was going to mention is the overall tire diameter on the Forester is going to be larger, a little bit larger than the Prius, which would also help you because naturally a larger tire rolls over objects, small objects like ruts and parking lots and things like that, easier than a smaller tire just due to its overall diameter. So that's something else to consider. For me, I would go with the Forester, but the Prius is an excellent car. All-wheel drive is awesome because now you have even more practical Prius, right? But
it's funny, Ryan, that you mentioned that because I mean that's why in the mountain bike world, everyone's pretty much switched from 26-inch wheels to 29-inch because they bigger wheels roll over things better. It's interesting that you bring that up as another reason. But yeah, Forester, I think Forester for sure. Mechanical all-wheel drive, I think that's also the way to go.
Yeah, the Subaru all-wheel drive system is tried and true. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to send those questions, comments, 30-second video clips to talkingcars@icloud.com. We love hearing from you and love seeing your smiling faces, so don't forget to send us some video questions. And we will thank you for watching and see y'all next week.